We grow when we give.
We grow when we give.
We grow when we give.
Nosotros crecemos cuando damos.
We grow when we give.
与えるとき成長する。
We grow when we give. Welcome to R.O.G, Return on Generosity, a podcast celebrating generosity at work. Not financial giving, giving valuable time, alternative perspectives, and genuine collaboration.
Our special guest today is Lyn Wineman. Few can match Lyn Wineman's passion for marketing and for helping changemakers do more good in the world. As the founder, president, and chief strategist of a full-service advertising agency, KidGlov, she has created a space where both of these passions can flourish. Lyn's talented team is known for putting a megaphone in front of those leading positive change. And I love that, and I'm thrilled she's here. KidGlov earned its certified B Corp status. And for those of you who don't already know that, please look that up. It's amazing. 2021, proof of their commitment to social and environmental excellence. Lyn is also the host of the Agency for Change podcast.
Yay.
Yet another forum to amplify the voice of changemakers everywhere. Love it. What I appreciate most about you, Lyn, and there's a lot of things, is your commitment to helping changemakers make even a greater difference. I love it. Welcome to R.O.G.
Thank you, Shannon. How great to be a fan of your podcast and then to actually get to be on it. I always love it when something like that happens. And you are so generous in my introduction that I also, have to say what I think is cool about you is your commitment to the whole concept of generosity, which, man, wouldn't you love it if there was just more generosity and kindness in the world?
Yes. Yeah. You and I are doing very similar things, right? And I think both on our podcast for sure, but like that, let's look for those who are doing it right? Those who are modeling these kinds of values and help others to learn, like, well, how are they doing it? And what would be my version of that? Right. Because I think we all want to stay authentic, but we also could get best practices and inspiration from other great leaders.
And you know that law of attraction, Shannon, whether you're really into the law of attraction and manifestation or not, I think that once you put yourself out in the world as a purpose-driven leader, somebody who's got this focus in life, it's amazing how you start to meet other people, right? I think that's the reason you and I were connected. Somebody said, oh, you guys are into the same things. And I've gotten to meet people from across the country who I never would have met if somehow that connection of, purpose and empathy and just change for good wasn't emanating out there. So I love that component of the universe.
Me too. So why don't we start a little bit about your background? Want to hear about KidGlov? Want to hear about your book? All this fun stuff. So let's start with you and where were you born? Tell us a little bit about your background.
All of my favorite topics. So, Shannon, I am from a very, very small town called Walton, Nebraska. And my story is that my great-great-great-grandfather immigrated from Prussia, which is now part of Poland. He immigrated from Prussia. He landed in Wisconsin. He became a sharecropper in Wisconsin to make some money. He and his brother walked from Wisconsin to Nebraska. Like sometimes I can't even imagine walking down the street, right? Walked to Nebraska, staked a claim, went back, got his wife, and I now live in the house that he built in 1857.
Oh my gosh.
So I have a strong tie to place and to legacies. I have grandkids now. That's a new chapter in my life. And my grandkids are the 8th generation of the family to be in this space. So it's really kind of an awesome thing. So I grew up, in a farming community, in a farming environment. But interestingly, my parents weren't farmers. They chose to be college professors and then went on to other careers that emanated out of that. Education was always a really important part of our lives. And when I went to college, I went into advertising because advertising is this beautiful blend of creativity and business. And I always loved all aspects of creativity. I've explored art and I've explored writing and I've explored acting. But when I hit a point as a young adult, I didn't feel confident enough of any of those skills to go out and make them my career. So I ended up in advertising, and I shot through college. Like, I just loved it. I loved everything about the business. I instantly went to work, actually, while I was still in college at a great advertising agency. I got to work for great clients, some well-known brands, some more quieter brands. While I was raising my family, I spent 20 years in that agency. And one day I woke up and I didn't love it anymore. And I couldn't quite understand why. Like, I had been working so hard, pushing so hard, and I kind of was facing a burnout moment and a moment where I was like, what am I doing with my life? And I've got these kids and my husband who have sacrificed because I've put in so many hours and I travel. And I met with a life coach who, at the time, this would have been the early 2000s. I met with a life coach, and that was a fairly new concept at the time. And she asked me a couple of questions that instantly clarified it for me. It's like, I love this business of advertising, but I want to do it in a way where I'm also making a difference, right? Like, how many retail products or business to business products can I help sell? Like, how much of that is really worth all of this time and stress and passion? And I also wanted to do it in a culture that felt really positive. And a lot of times and I was in a great agency. I don't want this to come off badly for them, but that the advertising agency world is very competitive. And a lot of times it's internally competitive. Like, your coworkers might be competing with you for promotions or the best clients. And so KidGlov was born out of that. At KidGlov, the name KidGlov is all about the fact that we treat brands and people with great care. And I would say, like, every fiber of our being as an organization is all about that. So growing into an agency that serves nonprofits and social impact movements and other B Corps and healthcare organizations. And oddly, we serve a lot of family-owned banks and credit unions because they too are very community-driven as well. And that's really our specialty.
Oh, that's incredible. And you're 10 years?
15 in May.
Years. Oh my gosh.
May of 2025. That'll put us at 15 years. Yes. For those.
Congratulations.
And those who are doing in the math, will know that I've been in this business for a very long time. But yeah, 15 years does feel like an accomplishment, especially, when not a lot of businesses make it past that 3-year, that 5-year point.
Yeah.
And Shannon, that's how we have a podcast, because we had our 10-year anniversary right at the beginning of the pandemic. And so all of the plans for having the big party and the things we wanted to do, like, we couldn't even be in the office together. So instead of having the party, we created the podcast. So our podcast has been going since August of 2020. And I think we're closing in on 230 episodes, maybe.
Yes, good for you. Oh, I love that.
Become something we really love.
Turn something bad into something good, or channel your creativity in a productive way to continue to serve. If
Absolutely.
You couldn't do it in the ways that you were doing it before. 15 years in business, that's a long time.
Yeah.
What do you attribute that to? I mean, how would you encapsulate some of the keys to success?
It might be pure stubbornness, right?
Tenacity.
I think that's part of, I'm hot off of a conference with a lot of purpose-driven entrepreneurs. And, I think one of the things we laughed about when you get 100 entrepreneurs together, we laughed about the fact that, entrepreneurs have so much resilience, right? Like, there are days when it just feels like the walls are coming in and you just look at them and go, well, hey, walls, what are we going to do about this, right? So I think tenacity. I also think I benefit from a lot of support. My family is so supportive. My husband, Neil, he's, he's fantastic. I mean, I wouldn't have been able to start KidGlov without his support. 2 of my 3 kids work in the business, creative people. So that's fantastic. Something that I really love. And then my team at KidGlov, I am so lucky that people have trusted me to the point where they'll come to our company, where we also have just amazing clients that we work with. So all of that network of support is really amazing as well.
That is incredible. And I know you've just recently refreshed your values, and I want to learn about
Yes.
them because I think they're very significant to the topic that we're talking about today. But also that you're a B Corp, and congratulations on that.
Thank
That's
you.
no easy feat.
No.
And I've seen webinars where you've taught people the process, and it's, a lot. But
Yeah.
that's in 2021. Just real quick for our listeners, just what does that mean?
Yeah. So to be a certified B Corp means that you have been verified essentially at being the best of the best, of having good, transparent business processes. You take care of your people, you take care of the planet, you take care of the community, right? There's 5 key pillars actually within the B Corp community. And if you go to the website for B Labs, and B Labs is an international nonprofit, you can take the assessment for free. And so if anybody wants to just check, like, where do I stand? You can take the assessment for free, right? So, right before the pandemic, we were talking a lot about KidGlov being purpose-driven and helping organizations infuse their purpose into their marketing. And somebody heard me talk about this, and they introduced me to the B Corp movement. And when I first heard about it, I said, oh, that's really cool, but I'm a busy entrepreneur. We'll do that later. But the more I started talking about purpose, the more people kept asking me, you must be a B Corp, right? So we said, all right, maybe we should look into this. And so when we took the assessment, it's a 200-point assessment. You have to be verified to score 80 points. And it's rigorous. It's not like you just fill out the boxes and they give you the gold star. Like, they come in, you fill out the boxes, you go, I think I've got enough points, you submit. They come in, they ask you a lot of questions, they look at your documentation. So we had a little back and forth there, just to make sure we verified that first time. But the great thing about having a 200-point assessment and you have to hit 80 points is that it allows for flexibility, because to have an organization like Patagonia qualify and have an organization like Ben & Jerry's qualify, but then to have an organization like KidGlov qualify, we're all 3 in very different spaces, very different companies. But yet we could kind of lean into the areas of B Corp certification that really, really fit us. So I am proud. You have to recertify every 3 years. And so we recertified and came in 15% higher than we initially certified, right?
All right.
It just means that, we've really grown into this mission.
You
and
learn
I know,
more.
Yeah. It really is. It's a great process. I mean, we went into the process because we kind of wanted to have that gold seal of, hey, we did this. But going through the process actually made us aware of spaces where we could become better. So I love that we got better in the process. But my favorite thing even is to be part of the B Corp community and meet other business leaders who run B Corps. And to get together with that group of people is just pure.
That's incredible. I just think it's something that's not commonly known.
Yeah.
The more we talk about it, the more our listeners can just cue into who are these companies? A lot of them name brands, like you're saying, some of them not as familiar, but that they have reached a criteria of thinking about how the impact that they're making globally. I think that's really something to admire, and clearly very generous. Speaking of generosity, you created a culture of generosity at KidGlov. And I think your new core values, refreshed, I should say, core values really emulate that quite a lot. What was your process for, how did you come up with the refreshed values?
Thank you for asking that. I mean, I think, Shannon, there's a lot of ways to be generous. And I think that you cover so many of them in this podcast. And I think for me, one of the ways we exhibit generosity is through collaboration, is through really listening and giving everybody on our team a chance to, share their voices and participate. So we had a very collaborative process in defining our core values. We actually started with the whole team, and we do a quarterly pulse survey where our chief operating officer, we send out the survey and we figure out where everybody's are and what could we be doing better. And so we added some core values questions to that survey. And then we went into our quarterly retreat in Q4 of last year, and we had a good list of these are the core values that our team really wants to lean into. And then we discussed those core values and why do we like this one or that one? And then, we used a poll and we reconfigured, and then we went back and we thought about it. And, being a marketing firm, we also then had to, have one of our copywriters jump in and really make the words sing for us, but they're core values that we live every day. One of our metrics for creating the core values is they can't be aspirational. They need to be something that we're living right now. Mm-hmm. And so, our core values are feed the fire, reimagine what's possible, have each other's backs. That's probably our favorite one. And stay true to who we are. And what those mean to us is, feed the fire is all about people on the team having a passion for the work that we do and a passion for the clients and a commitment to excellence and continuous growth. It's all about it would be difficult to be on our team if you didn't have a passion for this work that we're doing. It's not the place where you can just come in every day and check the boxes and go away. And then reimagine what's possible is all about not settling for good enough, right? And as a matter of fact, this value started by being called, if something's not working, we change it. And that's like, well, that doesn't sound eloquent enough. So we kept working it. But, it's about that adapting and improving. And then having each other's backs. We have this lovely woman on our team named Katie Ripa. She's been with us since, I think, 2017. But she always says that. She always says, let's have each other's backs. And it's just become, part of our vernacular. And even to the point where, we use it all the time. Like, hey, this person is struggling today. They've got too much on their plate, or they've got a really difficult situation. How can we have their back? Or I might even say it like, I'll be looking at a quarterly goal that I'll have. And it's like, man, I'm worried about making that. Could you guys have my back here by helping me with this thing? It's like just an easier way to ask for and give help. And then staying true to who we are. We have a belief here that you shouldn't try to change who you are. You should be more of who you are. And so really letting people lean into their strengths, but also being able to say, hey, this thing is a weakness or a frustration of mine. Can somebody have my back and come in here and help me with this without, having fear, guilt, or shame in saying that? So yes, they're new, but we're really we're trying to use the words and the concepts as much as possible, not to just make them a poster that's on the wall, but really a fabric of who we are as a team.
Yes. And with your quarterly pulse checks, it's an opportunity to see, how are we doing relative to that?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was just looking to see when this was, but we had Nick Baker, who's the CEO of Saxby's Coffee.
Yeah.
And he had just become a B Corp, and they redid their core values, and his 2 episodes is episode 23 and 24. So it's quite a while ago.
Nick, if you're listening, congratulations.
Yeah, he's fantastic. And he said that clarity of core values and exactly the process you went through where we did it together and they were actionable every day
Yeah.
And they were also leveraged on performance evaluations and really supporting and coaching people on how can we do this better or differently, and celebrating people who are doing that, like the woman that you
100%.
just identified. I think those are really incredible ways to it's not even change a culture. It's like you're getting clearer about what you
Yeah,
stand for.
absolutely. I think that clarity is key. I think Brene Brown has said something like that, right? Like being clear is being kind.
And
I'm
yeah,
probably messing up
very
the words
kind.
a
No,
little
that's
bit,
it.
but I think that clarity is kindness and kindness is generosity.
Absolutely. Where have you seen generosity in your own career?
So many places. And I am going to say, probably, I'm going to guess very few of your listeners have been to Nebraska because I encounter that often when I'm out in the world. But Nebraska is often known for, I think there's a saying, Nebraska nice, but I feel like I've had a lot of generosity of community. When I first started KidGlov, I can't believe how many business owners and business leaders were willing to take a coffee with me and just go, "Oh, Lyn, here's my advice," right? Like, here's my advice. But then I even would take that a step further and I would say, part of this kind of purpose driven community, people like you and I, Shannon, that believe in the ideals of purpose and generosity. It's amazing to me how many people from across the country and actually some across the world who, once they realize there's that connection, to be able to reach out and say, "Hey, I think you've gone through this before and I'm going through it. What can I learn from you?" And I think that is amazing generosity right
Yeah.
there.
Oh, I do too. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
And I love that. Like you said about Nebraska, even if people do have experience, they probably, have seen some of that, but to be a member of that community and see
Yeah.
how people just made time, offered advice,
Yes.
encouragement. You've talked about how your husband encouraged you to start KidGlov, and
Absolutely.
just really that little catalyst of you should do that. You could
Yeah.
do that. You should do that. I've got your
Seriously.
back. Talk
Yeah.
about having your back.
I honestly can't thank him enough for that moment because,
Yeah.
I kind of was at a turning point. And he said, "You've always wanted to do this. Why don't you go and do it?" And those were the words I needed to hear. And I literally think like he said those words and I knew it was going to happen.
Yeah. Oh, that's incredible. So you have a new book coming out
I
that
do.
I can't wait for you to share. It's not out until April, everyone, but let's talk about the book and then
Okay.
how they could get it.
I'm so excited about it, Shannon. I mean, one of the things I love about my job is when we're working with nonprofits or purpose organizations, we've done a lot of work in branding at KidGlov. And what I love about it is if you take an organization who has an old, or I hate to say this, but a tired, we've all seen, and maybe some of us have felt an old and a tired brand that you're not really proud of. And you go through a process where you really learn about them and you learn about their audiences and you learn about their vision. And then you turn that into a beautiful brand. And then you launch that brand and you see where it gives them more confidence. And with the confidence, they have more courage. And with the courage, they make stronger connections. And with the connections, they live out their mission, right? So the book is all about this process that we've developed over 15 years that really takes all of that into account. And we're putting the process in the book, right? Like, so one of the most generous people I have encountered, Shannon, is a woman named Barbara Bartles, and she was the executive director of the Lincoln Community Foundation and a client of mine for years. And the thing she would say is just give it away. Like, if you've got something that will help people, just give it away. So in our book, which is called Untangling Spaghetti, because it's all about untangling the things about your organization and building them into a beautiful brand that will amplify your mission, whether you're a nonprofit or a for-profit. It takes you through all the steps. There's a downloadable guide with exercises. And what we want to do is release this process into the world so that those that maybe don't find their way to KidGlov to have us help them, they've got an idea of how they can do this work. And on top of that, because we're storytellers, the book Untangling Spaghetti is a story. It's a brand fable, and it's a business leader who kind of goes through the process of realizing she has a problem. She doesn't realize how her brand leads to that problem or is impacting that problem, and going through the process of all the steps and the rewards at the end. So yes, the book is launching in early April.
Okay.
And so here's the book strategy, right? So I'm working with a book strategy coach who's fabulous. And she has convinced me for the first 3 days when the book launches on Amazon and Amazon Kindle, that for the first 3 days, we should make it free. And so any of your listeners who would like a great brand fable about how their organization can go through these steps at kidglov./free book, we'll let them know and send them the link when that free book is available.
Oh, that's amazing.
Just be
Thank
for
you.
3 days. And if you're so inclined in those 3 days and download the book, I want to leave us a great Amazon review.
Yes,
we would surely
that's
appreciate
incredible.
that. Yeah.
And to buy the book for their teams and otherwise, this sounds like the kind of book people are going to want to work through.
Yeah.
If they're not hiring you directly, that they
There
can
you
work
go.
through it, workshopping it. And we'll put the
Absolutely.
link to that in the show notes, everyone.
you.
So
Thank
please
you so
enjoy. Where did the title come from? I can see it in my head, but I can imagine you probably had 100 options. Like,
we did have a lot of options. We had a lot of options. And there's a part in the book where there's a conversation about how this feels like untangling spaghetti. And, it was like, oh, yeah, that is what it feels like, right? And so I know it. And because we're in marketing, we're going to do something that's positively disruptive. And so, our thought is that you're going to see this book in the branding and business sections of Amazon and other booksellers. And you're going to go, Untangling Spaghetti, a brand fable. What's that about?
what is that all about? Right. And it's so relatable.
Yeah.
Now, and I haven't read it yet, obviously, but I think to think about all of the components of your brand and the initiatives and the things that people are launching, and just to say, like, okay, how can we be more intentional about this? Is that the direction?
Absolutely. It's because it should be a very strategic process, right? It should be a very strategic process. And I think that's what's great about our 8-step process is that it helps you collect so much data and so much information. It helps you clarify your vision, and to do that alongside of maybe a leadership team or a board of directors, so that when the brand is created, it really has a lot of meaning. It's not just creative and positively disruptive, but just like the KidGlov brand, that it means something that is going to inspire you and your work and your team for decades. The early readers are giving it a thumbs up, 2 thumbs up. So we're kind of excited
Good
about
job.
that too. Yeah.
So of the stages of your process, which stage do you find the most fulfilling? Like what part of your internal process are you like, oh, yes, this is my lane?
It's interesting because we just did a presentation yesterday to a startup organization who has a really fantastic new concept. And I can't tell you what it is because their brand isn't in the world but just yesterday. So we went through all of the steps. So we understand their vision. We did some research. We looked at their competitors. We developed a brand archetype profile. We collaborated with them to set the strategy. So those are the first 5 steps. Then we go into messaging. So we help them develop a new name, a new tagline, a messaging statement, and a logo. So yesterday we presented the logo and the messaging statement. And I don't want this to sound weird, but one of the 3 partners actually had tears when they read the messaging statement, because they said, wow, you get us, and you get that this isn't just a business, it's a movement. Like it's a movement in the world. And that copy is so beautiful. But the reason it was beautiful is not just because it was well written by a professional writer. The copy is beautiful because it's based in a deep understanding of where they're going, what they're doing, what makes them special, and then combining that with a personality that's defined by a brand archetype profile. Like that's what makes it possible to do the work. And then we shared the logo options. We usually share 3 or 4 options and talk through where we go with the color palette. And there just was so much excitement and energy because they could see where we were going with this, right? So yes.
That's so exciting, right? To listen, to discern, to like look for patterns, to see the vision as clearly as you do. And then how can you help the market, like whomever they're selling to, understand what the value proposition is? That really is exciting.
Yeah. What I would say is that it's important to us. And, we started doing this before I had these words, but we are at KidGlov creating a culture of psychological safety, right? And you don't always have that in a competitive, creative environment, right? But what we want to do is create such a level of trust and unity and collaboration among our team members that we can openly have these conversations, that we can say, oh, we love these options. We're so excited about them. But we can also say, I don't think this one's hitting the mark. And it's not about you personally, but it's about this one. These options are off, but these options are great. But then also having the compassion, because if you've ever been on the receiving side of having a new brand presented to you, that can also be an incredibly stressful situation because you're worried. Like, I waited all this time. I spent all this money. Are they going to give me something that I like that's usable? Am I going to recognize it? If I don't like it, how am I going to tell them without hurting their feelings?
Sure.
Being able through the process to build up that transparency and trust and authenticity with clients as well. Like sometimes a client will, and this client in particular, sometimes they'll ask us a question and they'll say, well, what do you think about this? And we might say, I need to process that for a minute. Like I don't have a snap. Sometimes I do have a very snap fast answer, but sometimes it's like, I'd really like some space to think about that on your behalf and get back to you.
Yeah. Well, that's similar to what you were describing earlier about having each other's back. Because sometimes you just need to, and also the authenticity. Sometimes that's what you need is the support, the space, the time. And I don't think we ask for that enough. I really don't. I think for some decisions, we treat them like they're ones that we should know the answer.
Yeah.
When they're complicated and nuanced and, there are ripple effects from these decisions. Like I think it makes sense to be more thoughtful about them.
Absolutely. And you know what, Shannon, I think too, for me as a leader, for me to say, I want a culture at KidGlov that is trusting, collaborative, and authentic. You know what that means? That means I first have to be trusting, transparent, and authentic. And I have to be that inwardly, which sometimes is not easy because nobody gives you the rule book that says, hey, when you get up in the morning and you go to this meeting or you're in this difficult situation, this is what you should do. It's always every day figuring out like, where's the line? So just trying to do my best every day internally. And so we worked on that internally for many months and, I've made great progress. I mean, we started at a level that was pretty high, but I think even in the last 6 to 9 months, our internal level of transparency, collaboration, and authenticity has really increased. But then at some point towards the end of last year, I started in my mind going, hey, if I want to find clients that value that or that treat us in that way, that's the energy I have to bring as well. So I've had many meetings, if a potential client will call us and they'll want to talk to us about our branding process or website or whatever they want to talk about. I've had many potential clients say, wow, we can't believe how transparent you are in how you're going to approach this. And I often will just in the very first meeting go, hey, we do this work a lot. I kind of think that price is going to be between this and this. Does that match up with your budget? And they're like, wow, most agencies make us go through a 90-minute dog and pony show before we get to the last page about the price. And I'm like, well,
Right.
I think that I might as well just mention it to you up front because that's me demonstrating trust and transparency, right? And
Right.
trust and
That's modeling
transparency
it.
that if that doesn't fit for you, you'll just tell me and I'll maybe help you find an agency that maybe is more, in the
Suitable.
range of what you're looking
Yeah,
for. Yeah.
absolutely. What would be an example of a time when you had to demonstrate one of those things really intentionally? Like your
Ooh,
instinct was to not be that
yeah.
transparent or open or authentic, but you said, you know what? I'm
Yeah.
going to model it even though this is like painful.
Okay. And you know what? I'm going to give you an answer that's slightly painful. How about that too? I mean,
Okay, great.
just to go right on in. I mean, the advertising agency world is a world of peaks and valleys, right? And part of the reason we're writing a book and doing some different things is to diversify a bit. We had a time in 2024 when the economic downturn hit us, right? Like it hit us. Sadly, I wish we could run on generosity and purpose, but there is a financial aspect to this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I could see it coming. I could see it coming. Like for a couple of months, I can put on a happy face and go like, go get him, team. Like, we're going to do this. But then you kind of see it coming and having to have that transparency to go to a morning meeting and say, hey, everyone, you're probably already thinking this, so I'm going to say it out loud, right? Like, our numbers are not where they need to be. And we're going to start some cost cutting measures and we need to double down and try and get the numbers where they need to be. But if we don't, we're going to have to make some drastic changes. And so, yeah, that was hard because you're messing with people's lives. Like in my mind, I'm thinking of people going home in the evening and telling their spouse or the family, like, I'm a little bit worried here, but I didn't want people to be surprised. I wanted them to know where we were. And so
Yeah.
it's a tough one. It's a
Thank you.
tough one. That's the worst. I think any entrepreneur will tell you that's the
Yep.
worst part of doing the
Absolutely.
job. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. I know
Yeah.
those aren't fond memories, but
Mm,
they're real examples of what
yeah.
does this mean? Because I think sometimes when you hear words like that, you think, yeah, I'm that way. And you're like, but when do you really have to dig deep and say,
Yeah.
God, it'd be easier to
Yeah.
be a little more vague but for you to focus on that. And then just so people can continue to trust and know that if there's news coming, you're going to be offering it to them.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So you're great on your feet. So I'm going to ask if you would be open to doing some rapid fire questions.
Okay. I've been wondering what your rapid fire questions for me would be, having listened to other episodes. So, all right. I'm a little
Yeah.
bit nervous, Shannon.
Okay.
I'm a
No,
little
you're
bit
going to be
nervous,
great.
but let's
You're going
do
to be
it.
great.
Let's do it. Yeah.
So, I like to talk about music. I don't know if you're a fan of music, but I figure most people have a favorite song or two. What would be something
yeah.
like if you were listening to it, you're like, I just love this song.
I got to. Everyone who knows me knows my signature song. Like when I want to dance or when I need to pick me up, and secretly, Shannon, don't tell anyone, but if I'm in a conference room by myself and I need to pick me up, I will put this song on and I will dance ridiculously.
I
And
love
that
it.
is Love Shack by the B-52s. It just
That right
always,
at the beginning of that song, what song it is, right?
for sure. Love Shack Baby. So that's my song. Everybody knows it. My family, even, this is a sign of generosity. Whenever we're at a wedding and they play that song, my family knows that they have to come out and dance with me. And sometimes we're the only ones out there. And so it's fun. But then my other one is totally different. And it's Joe Walsh. Life's been good to me so far. And something
Yes.
about that song just makes me happy and smile.
Oh, that's such a good one. Thanks for the refresher on that. That is a beautiful
Absolutely.
song.
Yeah, those are my 2 most played songs on Spotify for
Yeah,
sure.
no doubt.
Yeah,
Oh, that's so
yeah.
good. It was on your what is it?
My Wrapped
Your Wrapped.
list.
How funny is
Absolutely.
that? Oh my
Yeah,
gosh, the Spotify Wrapped. It was killing me this year. My
absolutely.
daughter turned 21 on June 4th, and on my Wrapped, 2024 Wrapped, it was like you listened to 19 hours of music on June 1st. It said, where do you find the time?
It was you celebrating your daughter's
Yeah, because I was
birthday.
like, we were up
That's
at midnight,
fantastic. Yeah.
So funny.
Oh, I love that so
What
much.
sage advice have you been given?
My goodness, I have been given so much great advice, but I think the best advice loops back to something we already talked about, Shannon, and that is be the leader you would want to follow. And I have to credit my friend Vanessa Seifert for that, because that's, I think, on the homepage of her website even. And I think it just goes back to, man, if you want your people to be transparent, your clients to be transparent, then you too must be transparent. Yeah.
What sage advice do you often give to others?
All right. Well, I got to give you a marketing advice, and that is marketing with a bad brand is like wearing sweatpants to a job interview, which that used to be a great quote until we all started interviewing on Zoom. And now who knows? Who knows? But
Right.
you know what I mean.
It's just not a good look, and it takes away your credibility.
Absolutely.
Is that the main thing?
Absolutely. That's exactly what it means. You got it.
Yeah. What's one thing you most easily delight in?
Oh, well, I'm a fairly new grandmother. I have 2 grandsons, Ronan and Shiloh. They're 2.5 and 8 months. And I have to tell you, my grandma name is Lovey. So you can even brand your grandma name, because
Yes.
I want those 2 and any future grandkids I might have to know I am always in their court. I've always got their back.
Oh my, how do you spell it? Lovie?
Lovie,
Oh my gosh, I might steal that one.
Lovey. It took a long time. Lovey's a hard one to say for little toddlers, but
Yeah.
delight to my ears to hear
Oh
Lovey.
my gosh, that's beautiful. Congratulations on those two.
Thank you.
What's something you are learning about yourself right now?
Ooh, well, you and I have a mutual friend who's been on the podcast, Abby Haverman, and I've been working with Abby for a couple of years now, because apparently I was wound very tightly and it's taken a long time. But I think that what I'm learning is peace and tranquility is an inside job. Like if you're waiting for the next accomplishment or something in your life to change, the thing that needs to change is the way that you see your life and react to the situations you're in. So shout out to Abby. She's the best. If anybody wants to work with someone, talk to Abby Haverman. She's
Get in there.
fantastic.
Yeah, she's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. It's so true. It's an inside job. It requires a lot of work and attention, and it's worth it because everything else flourishes alongside of it, right?
Everything else. Yeah. Everything else.
So beautiful. So because you're so committed to doing good for the world, I was curious to learn, like, what's one of your habits that helps you to help the planet?
Oh my goodness. Well, I think I may answer this in a different way than you would think, but I think humans are a big part of this planet, right? And I think for me to exhibit kindness and generosity to the people around me in a way that might radiate or ripple from them as well. Like, I think one thing we do at KidGlov, or one thing that's important to me at KidGlov, is at the end of the day, I want my people to go home happy and healthy, and that's going to impact their families, and that's going to impact their associates. And so, yeah, I think taking care of people is a way to take care of the planet. And it's the simplest thing that any of us can do.
Yes.
A smile, a kind word, a belief that even though somebody might be irritating you, they're doing the best. They're doing their best with the information that they have.
Yeah. And my last question is, who gives you kid gloves? Like who handles you in a way that's loving and generative?
Yeah, I got to lead that back to my family, especially my husband at the top of the list. I am a very passionate and driven person. I have a lot of ideas. I have a lot of things I want to do. I usually have 10 too many things in my schedule and I'm running around, and he is like the calm force in my life, and he's always looking out for the things that I don't even think about, right? Like he's got my back for sure. Yeah.
So beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you for investing this time with us and sharing your thought leadership and offering us a free copy of your book, but also to invest
Absolutely.
in your book,
Oh.
Untangling Spaghetti.
Yeah.
We're just so grateful for you and all that
Yeah.
you're doing in the world.
Thanks so much, Shannon. What a pleasure. This conversation has made my day better.
Thanks for listening to R.O.G. Return on Generosity podcast. Please help us grow by subscribing and reviewing us on your favorite podcast player. And for more information, visit bridgebetween.com. We grow when we give.
우리는 나누면서 성숙합니다.
We grow when we give.
On rayonne quand on donne.
We grow when we give.